2595 creates a new criminal offense in the Texas Penal Code for harassing, intimidating, or threatening another person while concealing one's identity with a mask or similar headgear. This legislation is not about banning costumes or punishing peaceful protests. It's about ending intimidation and protecting public order and preventing the use of anonymity as a weapon. In recent protests, particularly in the wake of Hamas's attack on Israel, masked agitators have swarmed college campuses and city centers, blocking infrastructure, damaging property, and targeting Jewish Americans for harassment. The Anti-Defamation League has documented a 360% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in just the last year alone. In Houston, and as we saw at UT and other cities, demonstrators have used facial coverings to threaten, disrupt, and evade law enforcement. And yet in Texas, there is currently no specific penalty for using a mask to commit these acts of harassment or intimidation. Senate Bill 2595 fills that gap. It makes it a Class B misdemeanor to harass, intimidate, or threaten another person in a public space while wearing a mask to conceal identity. Importantly, the bill provides broad exemptions for headgear and other masks when the use is primarily for costumes like Halloween, religious garb, occupational safety, health precautions, weather protections, theatrical performances, and emergencies. These affirmative defenses ensure the bill is narrowly drawn and constitutionally sound.
Thank you, Senator. Members, any questions for the author on Senate Bill 2595? So we're going to leave that bill before us.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hughes on Senate Bill 2876. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Middleton's bill and this one are in the same general subject matter, so we'll lay this one out along with it. Senate Bill 2876, again, Senator Middleton covered the issues very well. The use of face coverings during incidents of disorderly conduct has become increasingly common. In D.C. last June, protesters, many of them masked, gathered at Lafayette Square where they vandalized statues and set off a smoke bomb. Face coverings present a major obstacle to law enforcement, making it difficult to identify suspects in large crowds. As a result, many cases are dismissed due to insufficient evidence. During interim hearings, we were tasked with studying the use of face coverings by those seeking to conceal their identity while committing crimes during protests. Expert witnesses and law enforcement testified that face coverings not only hinder identification, but often embolden folks to engage in criminal behavior. In many cases, protesters wear masks with the specific intent to cause harm and chaos while avoiding accountability. We want to balance those concerns against those who have health concerns and others that may require them to be masked. So Senate Bill 2876 increases the penalty for rioting from a Class B misdemeanor to a Class A misdemeanor if, during trial, it's shown the defendant wore a face covering with the intent to conceal their identity. Again, just like Senator Middleton's bill, we want to address this conduct while respecting rights of those folks who need to wear masks for other reasons. And so that's what the bill does, and I'll yield for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Chair opens up public testimony on Senate Bill 2876.
Thank you, Senator. And we also open up public testimony on Senate Bill 2595. So both of these bills are now before the committee. We'll have some witnesses on one or the other or on both.
Chair opens up public, yes, 2595.
Thank you so much. So we'll begin testimony on both bills, Senate Bill 2595 and Senate Bill 2876. And the chair calls Jackie Nierenberg, Cole Glosser, Autumn Lawner, Amy White, Kristen Budwine, Courtney Toretto, Stephen DeLine, Lindsay Blackwell, Samiha Rizvi, Jennifer Margulies, Arshia Papari, Chris Harris. And I've called every witness who we have registered to testify on for or against the bill so far. Help yourself. Either one of these seats on the end, you're welcome to. Almost, hold tight, almost there. Oh, here.
Oh, sorry, it's always a little tricky. Okay, fantastic. Honorable Chair Hughes and
So,
members of the committee, thank you so much.
Let me see. So go ahead and introduce. No, that's fine. That's fine. We're almost there.
Yes.
All right, let's begin. We'll go ahead and start over here and work our way across. So my left, your right, welcome. Introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Okay, so me first? Okay. Hello, committee members. Hello, Chairman. My name is Samiha Rizvi, and I'm here on behalf of the Council on American Islamic Relations, Texas, to testify in opposition to SB 2876. This bill raises serious civil liberties concerns. It expands criminal penalties in a way that could target peaceful protesters, especially those who wear face coverings for religious, medical, or cultural reasons. Under current Texas law, Texas defines a riot as an assemblage of just 7 or more people whose conduct might disturb others. That means a peaceful protest could be retroactively labeled a riot, especially if a few individuals escalate. SB 2876 would then make it a Class A misdemeanor to wear a mask in that context, not based on what someone did, but based on what police believe their intent was. So, I ask you all, how will officers determine intent to conceal identity, and what protections will be in place to prevent profiling or selective enforcement? As of now, with the current language, this bill appears to be not about safety, but rather intimidation. And we strongly believe that it will chill free speech and deter Texans from exercising their First Amendment rights. I urge you all to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rizvi. I want to make sure we have the records correct. We show you as against Senate Bill 2595 and against Senate Bill 2876. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Just making sure. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead and get as close to the mic as you can, please.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. You're fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senate Committee. I am Lindsay Carmichael Blackwell. I am here today as a 2-time member of Team USA, a Paralympic medalist, just like the ones you were cheering on at the 2024 Paris Games half a year ago. People call me an inspiration all the time, but it's hard to feel inspirational when anti-mask legislation sends a clear message that I am not welcome in public spaces, that disabled, chronically ill, and high-risk Texans like me are not welcome to exercise our constitutional rights like freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Anti-mask legislation would take away my freedom to protect my health. Whether that's protecting myself from highly contagious diseases like measles or COVID, or from smoke inhalation from wildfires, or from fears of being unfairly targeted by law enforcement, my disability might be visible, but millions of Texans have health conditions that aren't obvious at a glance. Officers cannot be made arbiters of whether a citizen is medically justified in their right to protect their own health. I'm a 7th-generation Texan. I'm proud that Texas sent the 3rd largest U.S. contingent of Paralympians in the most recent games. Many of my fellow athletes and disabled Texans have compromised immune systems and complex health problems that we work hard to manage. We want to protect ourselves and be part of the story of the Lone Star State, but we cannot participate. We cannot make our voices heard if we have to risk our health, our careers, our lives because of anti-mask legislation. That is no choice at all. It feels like a door closing in my face. It feels like when I was a kid being left behind and left out of inaccessible places all over again. So if you believe my life as a Texan has meaning, if you have ever been inspired by a person like me, please let me inspire you today to oppose SB 2529 and SB 2876 and keep Texas accessible and welcoming of our most vulnerable citizens. Thank you for hearing my testimony.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome back. Introduce yourself,
Yes.
give us your testimony.
Thanks so much, Chair Hughes and members of the committee. Thanks so much for the opportunity to testify today. Hello, my name is Cole Glosser, and I'm a policy fellow with the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities, or CTD, an organization advocating for people with disabilities to live freely and thrive in the community of their choice. And I am testifying on both SB 2876 and 2595. And I want to discuss how a proposed mask ban would affect the disabled community. There are thousands of disabled Texans and family members who need a mask due to chronic illness or being immunocompromised in order to protect their health. Since 2020, masking has become an incredibly important tool for those who are immunocompromised to protect their health in public settings, and it's crucial that they're able to continue to do so and into the future. And while we very much appreciate that Senator Middleton's bill clearly leaves out the health provision defense within SB 2595, we're also strongly urging that 2876 includes a health provision as well. But also, and just the general idea is that we need to make sure that we are not stigmatizing some Texas' the most vulnerable population that needs to mask in order to maintain their safety in public life. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Since you're on the end of the table, you got to get real close to the microphone and introduce yourself and go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chairman Hughes and the committee. My name is Jennifer Margulies. I am speaking today opposed to both bills as a parent and as a politically engaged Texan. Those are two things that are really important to me. I live with people who are immune compromised and who have chronic health issues. And in order for me to stay engaged the way that I like to stay engaged, whether that's coming up here to the Capitol where you may have seen me walking around with this mask, or whether it is going to political protests or gatherings, I'm masked to protect my family members. And I'm very concerned about the way that these bills would make it really difficult to do that and would mean that part of my risk assessment in going out in public would be, can I go any place where someone might do something at a protest where you have a small minority of people who might behave in a way that is afterwards going to be qualified as something that was a riot or people who were doing harassment when the vast majority of us there are engaged in peaceful protest and speech. And there's a recording, here I am, I was there, I'm wearing this mask as I do in public, and suddenly I'm not available to take care of my kid because I've been charged with a crime. So I'm very concerned about the overreach that we could see happening as a result of this bill. And I think if people are committing crimes at a protest or in any other situation in public, they should be held accountable for those crimes and not for what they were wearing, not for a mask. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Get close to that microphone, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
Hello, my name is Kirsten Budwine. I'm a policy attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project here in opposition to SB 2876. As the bill analysis states, protesters are typically charged under the riot statute. Imposing a mask ban, especially in the context of exercising the right to protest, is likely to impede on Texans' right to anonymously protest. The U.S. Supreme Court has affirmed the right to anonymous political expression and association in several cases. In one of those cases, McIntyre v. Ohio Elections Commission, the court highlights the importance of preserving the right, stating, quote, "Anonymity is a shield from the tyranny of the majority. It thus exemplifies the purpose behind the First Amendment, in particular to protect unpopular individuals from retaliation and their ideas from suppression at the hand of an intolerant society. The court's rationale in these cases still hold true today. In this day and age where doxing is at an all-time high, people are receiving death threats, experiencing harassment, being terminated from their jobs, and even being deported for their political beliefs, it is imperative that protesters are free to protect themselves from retaliation. U.S. district courts have also recognized mask wearing during demonstrations as a symbolic speech protected by the First Amendment. In Arian v. Mackey, student organizers sued Texas Tech University after the university agreed to grant them a permit to hold a peaceful demonstration only if the student organizers agreed to wear masks. Texas Tech argued that anonymity via mask could encourage demonstrators to engage in violent activity. The district court sided with the students, holding that masks serve a communicative purpose and were therefore protected under the First Amendment as a right to freedom of expression. The right to anonymous protest is well established under law. TCRP is deeply opposed to this bill that will undermine Texans' constitutional rights and further expose protesters to retaliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Budwine, for your testimony. Senators, any questions for any of our witnesses on this panel? We thank each one of you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. The chair calls Amy White, Autumn Lawner, Jackie Nierenberg, Courtney Toretto, Stephen DeLine, Arshia Papari, Chris Harris. And those are the only witnesses who have expressed a desire to testify on, for, or against the bill by registering. So I'll call your name, please come on down, and then we'll be doing a last call after this panel. Or we'll start over here on my left, your right, and so on the end of the table, make sure and get close to that microphone so we can hear you. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hello, my name is Autumn Lawner. I'm an autistic adult living in Houston, and I'm here to oppose both SB 2595 as well as SB 2876. While I don't personally wear a mask every day outside of public transit, many autistic people do because we're significantly more likely to have asthma, autoimmune disorders, and other conditions that compromise the immune system. For those individuals, masking in public is a medical necessity. Although this bill focuses on masks, it's written broadly enough to include other face coverings. That could potentially extend to sunglasses or even the tinted glasses I wear for light sensitivity. This is something that's deeply concerning. SB 2595 criminalizes people for concealing their identity while engaging in behavior that someone perceives as intimidating or harassing. These are vague, highly subjective terms that open the door for misinterpretation. Autistic people often move, speak, or react in ways that others don't understand. We are statistically 7 times more likely to have encounters with police, and those encounters are more likely to escalate due to miscommunication, often leading to unnecessary use of force or detention. This is especially true for Black and brown autistic people. Likewise, whenever I attend protests, I wear ear defenders because it's loud. I wear these tinted glasses or sunglasses because it's bright, and often I do wear a mask. Not for anonymity, but because the smells, the wind, the hair brushing against my face can be overwhelming. These are basic disability accommodations, sensory aids that allow me to be present, to participate, and to exercise my rights without harm. Under SB 2876, each of these could fall under a mask or other headgear used to conceal identity. As other people have already talked about, riot in Texas can be very broad. It's a very low bar. And SB 2876 doesn't just raise the penalty for participating in what is deemed a riot, it raises it specifically for people who wear masks or other headgear in ways that might be interpreted as concealing their identity. These bills punish perception. They give law enforcement broad authority to assume intent based on how someone looks, not what they've done. For disabled people, especially autistic folks or those with chronic illness, this is terrifying. We already live under constant misinterpretation and unequal scrutiny by law enforcement. I'm not saying it's okay to riot, but how is it fair that someone like me could face harsher punishment than others simply because I need accommodations to exist safely in public? I urge you to vote no on both of these bills, protecting the rights and freedoms of all Texans to access their community safety.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Hughes, members of the committee. My name is Jackie Nierenberg, and I am the Regional Director for the Anti-Defamation League, also known as ADL, for the Austin region, which covers Central Texas. I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 2595 and the critical need to protect our communities from mass intimidation and harassment. As you may know, ADL is a leading anti-hate organization founded in 1913 with a mission to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment to all. Today, we persist in tackling all forms of anti-Semitism and bias, leveraging innovation and partnerships to drive effective change. ADL works vigilantly to protect democracy and foster a just and inclusive society for everyone, is known as a global leader in fighting anti-Semitism, exposing extremism, delivering anti-bias education, and fighting the spread of hate in our communities and online. Starting over 100 years ago, anti-masking laws were on the books in most states across the country, including here in Texas. Texas's law was enacted in 1925, and for a reason, to protect communities from mass intimidation by the KKK. ADL's work on this issue is longstanding. In the late 1940s, ADL published a pamphlet entitled How to Stop Violence Intimidation in Your Community. It included model language for state statutes and local ordinances aimed at preventing members of the KKK from engaging in tactics of harassment and intimidation while concealing their identities behind hoods and masks. ADL's efforts led to the passage of the anti-Klan legislation, including anti-mask and anti-cross burning laws in 6 additional southern states and 50 communities. This legislation helped to end the KKK's reign of terror, as they could no longer intimidate and threaten Black, Jewish, and Catholic communities using hoods and masks to hide who they were. Although Texas repealed its anti-mask law in 1974, we are unfortunately seeing a resurgence in masked harassment and intimidation. Individuals across Texas are wearing masks and face coverings to hide their identities, to harass, intimidate, and target others with impunity, all while evading accountability. ADL supports Senate Bill 2595, which only criminalizes intentional masked harassment and intimidation. The law should only be applicable to individuals who conceal their identities and intentionally place others in reasonable fear of physical harm. We urge the Texas State Affairs Committee to favorably vote SB 2595 out of committee. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Courtney Toretto. Thank you, Chair Hughes, Vice Chair Paxton, and members of the committee. My name is Courtney Toretto, and I'm the Director of Policy for the Central Division of the ADL, which covers 16 states, including Texas. I'm here today in support of SB 2595 and the critical need to protect our communities from mass intimidation and harassment. As my colleague mentioned, historians directly credit ADL's efforts to unmask hate with helping to slow the growth of the KKK in the second half of the 20th century. Currently, over 20 states, the federal government, and numerous localities have such laws on the books. However, many laws are outdated and/or constitutionally vulnerable due to evolution in case law. Unfortunately, we are once again seeing a resurgence in mass harassment, with individuals across the political spectrum engaging in harassment and intimidation while wearing masks to conceal their identity and to place others in fear of physical harm. This is an important moment to revisit anti-masking laws to ensure that they are comprehensive, appropriately tailored, and constitutionally sound. It is also crucial to restore and strengthen these measures to protect our vulnerable and marginalized communities while allowing exceptions for health considerations and religious expression. We all agree on the importance of the right to protest. Anti-masking laws can and must be narrowly tailored to preserve freedom of speech and assembly. However, the exercise of free speech and assembly must not infringe upon the rights and safety of others. Similarly, we all agree that individuals should be able to mask for health and safety reasons. SB 2595 will not interfere with that right, nor the right of individuals to wear religious garb. But individuals and groups who engage in harassment and intimidation, fueled by bias and hate, must not be able to hide behind masks to avoid consequences for their conduct. It is also notable that many neo-Nazis and other white supremacists often use masks and head coverings to obscure their identities while terrorizing and intimidating communities across the country. Some other types of extremists may also use head coverings while engaging in civil disorder in order to avoid identification by law enforcement. The tactics of the Ku Klux Klan, which symbolize some of the darkest chapters in American history, must no longer be tolerated. ADL supports SB 2595 and urges the Texas Senate State Affairs Committee to favorably vote it out of committee. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator, is there any questions for any of our witnesses on this panel? Dean Zaffarini, you're recognized.
Thank you. To the two witnesses who are supporting the bill, I assume you've read the bill?
Yes.
And I assume that you listened to the testimony of the people who registered against it?
I caught some of it, sorry, I was driving in with my daughter over there.
Is there a way that you could suggest we amend the bill in order to meet your needs and also address the concerns of those who testified against the bill?
So when you look at the content of the bill, it actually does offer carve-outs. So this is a policy that ADL is supporting across the nation, but very specifically narrowly tailored, including carve-outs for health and safety, for religious wear, for costumes, for basically anything we could think of that required you, that had you covering your face, that didn't include concealing it to harass, intimidate, or threaten. We tried to carve out for it, and that's what you see reflected in this bill. So it actually does cover a lot of those bases of the concerns. ADL supports the right for protest. We support the right of free speech. This bill doesn't infringe on that. It's only when you cross that line into intimidation, harassment, and threatening people's physical safety, that's when this bill would come into play.
And yet the people who testified against the bill remain concerned about the content and don't agree with your interpretation. So let me ask the person who testified, who registered against the bill, do you believe that this bill addresses your concerns as it is, or do you have suggested amendments?
So the biggest problem that I'm seeing from my particular perspective is the engagement with law enforcement as far as the additional attention brought from masks, especially looking at engagement with autistic people. That's one where whenever people with certain disabilities have that attention brought to them, just engaging with law enforcement involves further issues as far as communication problems, behavioral differences, things of that nature that can escalate those problems and lead to a lot of difficulty. So it's just the facet of taking medical masks, taking anything like that and saying you're not wearing that is inherently suspect. Wearing any sort of face covering, wearing any sort of sunglasses and a hat is inherently suspect. That's where the problem really comes from, especially when you start getting into communication differences or start getting into different behaviors that can draw that attention or that people might interpret as threatening. Even looking at the protest one, or sorry, the riot one. That's one where as people attend those, if a protest turns into a riot and I'm there wearing a mask just because smells, the sound, everything, I'll usually wear ear defenders as well when I go to protests. And it's that facet of, at that point, there's not anything in that bill to differentiate between the person who's there wearing those things because they're a required disability accommodation and the person who's there that may be trying to do something insidious. And that's really the difficult piece for me.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Dean. Any other questions for these witnesses? We thank each of you for being here. You're excused.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else present wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 2595? Anyone else present wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 2876? Public testimony on Senate Bill 2595 is closed. Bill will be left pending.
Chair closes public testimony on Senate Bill 2876 and leaves the bill pending.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chair now lays out Senate Bill 2753, and recognizes